Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I wanted to hold this type of conversation: Africans versus the intellectual ADS. So a lot of things Africans, when they critique America, they don't realize history, their own history, and many times the history of the country they're coming to. Let me give you an example. When Africans go to Russia, I know this because I used to live in Romania. They hide from the fact that they don't know Russian history. Yet they wonder why Russians do some of the things they do against Africans. It's not that they don't like Black people, because when I go to Russia as an African American, I look like a business guy. Shout out to V Dub Boogie in the house. How you doing, sir? You may like this intellectual uh, chessboard I'm putting up. Africans have to admit that when they go to America, they don't know the prior history. Let me say it again for the people just coming up. When Africans go to Russia, I know this because I lived in Romania. When Africans go to Russia, they don't know the history many times, and we're talking about Africans, of which their country they're living in. When they go to Germany, they don't know. Then they wonder why German people treat them the way they do. I'm starting this whole series on Africans versus ADOS because it's different for people like me and Man of Tomorrow. Welcome, Man of Tomorrow.
Hey, what's
We,
going on, man?
we have a business understanding of how things work. And I'm about to give the microphone to Man of Tomorrow, but I'm going to set this up. It's not that we don't like Africans. We don't like Africans who allow themselves to be used by other people against me and Man of Tomorrow. We don't like African Americans who allow themselves to be used against people like me and Man of Tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, when they come against you, you know who you're going to call on? Me and Man of Tomorrow. Because we're financially okay. We got the connections. And you guys don't have that. You just got a bag of money. Educate me, Man of Tomorrow. Where did I get it wrong?
No, you didn't get it wrong. And people have to stop thinking that being co-opted and being used as a weapon against other people is something that's a good idea. It's not. Like when I was in Mississippi, like some of the Africans who came there, they freely sided with the other people across the tracks because it was advantageous for them to do so.
For a bag of money.
Yeah, for a bag of money. And it's like they have like the local spokesman for the party. Like they never ran for office. They never ran for office. But they would always freely go be the face and the words of things that the other side there couldn't say.
In the Black community.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Let me make this point before you continue. In the Black community, where we're trying to have loving arms for you as an African person, as a Caribbean person, as an Arab person who looks Black. Yemen, shout out to the Yemens. We're trying to have love for you, but you're coming in with this concept to be used. Shout out to VD Boogie in the chat room. He says Russians have a long history with African countries. Absolutely. They have no problem with people who want to come and adopt to the warrior mentality. There was a famous poet, V Boogie, who went from being a slave all the way up, but he had to adopt the warrior code. And that's what Man of Tomorrow talks on his channel. That's why I talk on mine. But you can't come with the I want to serve people mentality. And that's what Man of Tomorrow is talking about now. Go ahead, MOT.
Because if you come in with the servant mentality. Even though you are doing financially well, you don't own a business, you're just a mouthpiece. You may be middle class or upper middle class. In Mississippi, that's what, $30,000 to be considered that, by the way. And so your kids may do well, but your kids have the actual aspect of growing up knowing that they are not just supposed to team with quote unquote those type of people. Not the best
Exactly.
of those type of people in the area. In the area. Not that. But just like those people overall.
Well, even to what Man of Tomorrow says, and then those children, many a times, if you have not set them up with their own bag of money, they end up falling on the black community too. Because once the other children grow up with your African children, 50% of the time, I'm gonna be honest, it's half and half. 50% of the time, they will turn against your African children. Now, that's not nothing you experience as a parent, right, MOT? But the African person is like, what's wrong, Mugabe? What the, what all of a sudden my friends start calling me Igga. What's going on? Now all of a sudden, your people are working your friends, your white friends who you grew up with in this white town. All of a sudden give you that wake up call. That's why we African Americans call it a wake up call. And then all of a sudden, here you come back to MOT. Man, this ain't right, man. But look how much damage you've done to MOT and his business with your mouth. Look how much damage your father has done to Mr. Research career and position with y'all family mouth. Now you need my help. Your father's on the deathbed, and now this is why we as African Americans get intellectually, not emotionally, but intellectually frustrated. Go ahead, MOT.
Yeah, and what they have to understand is there is a point to where they're not going to need that type of help from that specific person anymore. There always is going to be that wake up call where you think you're a little bit too much part of quote unquote that group, and then things turn around for you very quickly, and you lose your whole space and place in society. Paris Denard found out the hard way. He didn't realize that you were not supposed to be criticizing CIA director
Right, right.
for
Speak
that
on
dude
that
cold
though.
card.
Speak on that. They didn't know. Speak on that.
Because see, they don't realize that this stuff is supposed to be a dog and pony show, not a place where you get to grandstand and do things that other people in the environment are not doing.
Hold on for 1 second. I'm gonna give it right back to you. Let me use this opportunity to apologize to Gabe. I know most of that energy, Gabe, you and Fantastic have, but let me share with you my position. Why I do some pushback with you intellectually. There are things that MOT understands in the IT field from the military standpoint that you may not have experienced. There's some things that I understand working at Earthlink and Microsoft that you may not have experienced. It doesn't mean none of us are incorrect. So my apology to you, Gabe, is that sometimes I say stuff you might not understand, but I'm saying it from the level of what we're talking about today on this panel: power and not being used. A contract person doesn't really have power per se, unless
Not
they
at all.
take. Well, I'm gonna let you loose on that, MOT, because
All
you
right.
got computer knowledge as well. And this is the part Gabe don't understand when we give pushback on his experience as a contractor. As a contractor, you don't have power. You are actually going in to fix the white man's problem. What from a power standpoint, it might be better to contract, not contact, contract. It might be better to contact a MOT or contact his brother or contact people on a linear lane, mass produce that situation, and then go back and tell massa, oh well, I can't get the job done. I appreciate the bag of money that you gave me for the past 6 months, but maybe you need to get somebody else. Go and produce that, patent it. Am I right, MOT?
That's
That's
correct. I mean, but Gabe said he's not a contract person.
Well, he's always said that. I don't. I've heard him say that several times. So maybe I'm confused what he is. But nevertheless, I was under the assumption that you were contract because you said it a couple of times on O'Shea's show. Maybe you misspoke, but I've heard that said 3 times. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
my
Well, hold on, Mr. Wilson. Gabe can actually come up and explain this position, so that way we can
well
be on the same
that's why I
page.
said that's why I told him he could, because I want to make it inviting. But my whole point is, and let me give it back to you, MOT. My whole point is that when we're talking about power, even where MOT was talking on a political level, okay, regardless of whether Gabe is contract or not, let's take that out of it. Don't go and be used by the white man is what we're trying to tell Africans. Don't get, and this is what MOT is saying on a political level right now. Don't be used by the white man because you'll get a bag of money. Yes, you'll be $200,000 richer. Okay. But that all goes against the black community in the end. So if you have no historical knowledge of how Russia works, you have no historical knowledge about how Africa works, just because you move to Thailand and start making money, don't mean that somebody ain't gonna set you up on year 10, which has happened all the time in history, man, or tomorrow, and
Oh yeah,
take your whole empire and give it to their son. It happens all the time. But go ahead, MOT.
but it's just that this is why because they're so. I mean, because the American experience, the way it is, produces a high level of failure per capita. They come over here without all the baggage of the American experience per capita. Rather than taking their experience, splitting off and doing their own thing, they do an even easier thing by coming in and immediately getting weaponized and acting just like the people here who got power versus siding with the people who can help them get more power overall. So they get a power boost coming over here acting a certain way, but they can have a hell of a lot more power if they work with the most educated and the brightest people while they're doing that. But they take the easiest route of just acting a certain type of way when they get here. And it's not all of them. It's only a certain specific number of them, but they never get called out whenever they do it.
Right. And the point we're making to people, to African people listening, this isn't a hate fest. This is actually
Oh
love
no,
and help, because this is two intellectual dudes having a discussion on how to look at America from Massa's point of view. He don't see tribes, MOT. He
no,
don't
he don't.
see he don't see castes. Indians are finding that out. He
Yeah,
sees one thing: melanated, not melanated. The Russian guy and the guy from Turkey who wants to kill white Americans, he will invite them in his circle. I have evidence. We have 2 spies that were caught inside of the political GOP and Democratic Party, and they are white as the living snow, spying on both white people. And the one Republican fought to get her back after he found out she was a spy.
sure
You can't
did.
make that up. Yeah, you can't make that up, MOT.
No,
If
but
that woman had black skin, she
ooh,
would have never made it in. And then him trying to fight to get her back. So as Africans, and I'm about to give it back to MOT, as Africans, what we're trying to get you guys to understand is a lot of times you're not having higher level conversations with higher level Americans who understand policy and business and history and blah blah blah. You're having conversation with people who are get the bag people. And
yes,
that's no discredit to the get the bag people, but I know for a fact, just on what I know MOT does and the level he does it on, I know what level I deal with white folks every week. And it's different than dealing with white folks once a month or once every quarter when you close your laptop and finally go get your check. I mean, this it's a lot of different variables on that. And so we got to understand how not to be used as Africans and then get 200,000 and start bad mouthing other Africans. That's the point of this video. Where did I get it wrong, MOT? And notice, gentlemen, I keep saying where did I get it wrong because that opens up a different dialogue. I don't want me to push a one narrative thing. You feel me? So let's get MOT. Where did I get it wrong, MOT?
No, you didn't get it wrong, and we're trying to have because in 2021, I'm disassociating myself with most of the stuff around here because I'm trying to go somewhere else because we know what the point of the actual space and spirit is now. Is to do the same thing over and over again to different groups of people. However, for the people who want to move on and move forward, this is what we're doing. So you have to understand that inviting criticism, inviting people to come up, inviting people to come through, like I do, my live streams. Link be posted in the chat. Everybody got a lot to say about things, but when the link is in the chat, they don't come up. But all of a sudden, they're walking around with the same talking points, calling things, comments. I'm like, dude, listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start blocking keywords so that way I can get you guys all the way to hell up out of here. I'm about to get a whole new audience of people who want to move forward. Because there are black people who want to move forward, and there are black people who want to stay down here. And that's fine. But the people in both spaces have got to work together who's already moving ahead. And that's kind of where we're going with this.
Let me introduce Sub-Zero, but let me get back to the premise first. The premise of the video is this, and I'm going to start doing these things with Africans trying to understand African Americans. And one of the things me and MOT spoke about earlier, just to bring you up to speed, Sub-Zero, so it's just not a computer conversation only, is that Africans got to stop putting themselves in position to be used. Here's what Sub-Zero did. Sub-Zero put himself in a position where he saw there was a lack in the market. And he went and created a lane that not only helps people, one of my Wolf students is attending his classes right now, that it's not just helping people, but he's able to be a person with the ability to hire and expand. You can't be an African coming to America putting yourself in a position to only get a job, get a contract, and then wag your finger. If you're not hiring other Nigerians, if you're not hiring other people from Ghana and what have you, then you're not hiring Black ADOS too, but you're hiding in Black ADOS circles, wagging your finger. What we're trying to get you guys to understand as Africans is don't do that. Be open to where did I get it wrong? Sub-Zero, where did I get it wrong?
No, I don't think you got it wrong at all. I don't think you got it wrong at all. How do I sound? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you're good, sir.
Okay, so I don't think you got it wrong because you're just challenging people to look out for the next man. I mean, that's an old basic principle. Many proverbs, they say, many hands make a load light. You know, there's wisdom in the multitude of counsel. It's just wisdom. If you want to be in a space surrounded by people that aren't your same color, skin tone, and even I'm gonna go a step further. I find it somewhat condescending to come and benefit from the struggles of African Americans in this country. You get here, you take benefit, and you are right in that they are not taking advantage of what's in front of them. I agree. I say that 1,000 times, but it's almost like talking about your friend's sister or brother. There's only so far I can go with that. I can mention, hey, you probably need to do this, but I'm not going to drag. Your brother can drag you, but you can't go. I can't go in your house and talk about your sister or your mama or your cousin. I can't do that. So out of respect, I wouldn't go to Africa or the Caribbean and talk about how fucked up Africa is, or how backwards Jamaica is, or how they let the Chinese.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just interject something. I got to address a chat room thing. So Nigel says post-colonial elitist American envy. Again, the link is in the room. I don't know why people try to do the stuff from the safety of the chat. Let's get intellectual, point out where I got it wrong, but doing it from the safety of the chat, maybe I'm not understanding, because you said a couple of things in there that were contradictory and combining two continents in one sentence. It's kind of confusing, but nevertheless, the link is in the chat room. Please continue, Sub-Zero.
Yeah, I don't. I want one thing about me, man. I've understand or I've become aware in the last, I'd say, four years of my life about there being a difference in culture and even heritage to a certain extent between us and immigrant blacks. And so we have to, I think we can benefit from picking up certain things from their culture. Like, for example, they outwork Asians. They're very hardworking. They're industrious. They're resourceful. So there's a lot of things that these people do when they come over here that if you wanted to stop them, you couldn't. I think African Americans can sort of benefit from that. I always cite the Brookings Institute study where it talked about the average time spent per night doing homework, and the African American black people put in about 29 minutes a night on homework, whereas their white counterparts put in over an hour. Their Asian counterparts put in over 2 hours a night studying. And this is why this may speak to why there's a disparity. It's not always just racism and white supremacy. I don't even want to scream that ticket until, and that's why a lot of Africans, my friend's married to one of them, to an African, and he says the same things. Like, he talks to a lot of them, and they tell him, we can't understand you guys. You guys got all this opportunity, you got these things, and you don't work hard, and you want to say you're oppressed. You want to talk oppression. You deal with that after you deal with the what you can handle. The serenity prayer. What can you control? Understand, to know the difference, and the wisdom to know I can control how hard I work. I can control my ACT scores. I can control my GPA. I can control where I go to college. Because academically, if you are excellent, you'll get a chance to go to school. And from there, you can kind of move and navigate in life, because now you have a valuable skill. And so your whole outlook will be different on wealth, money, finances, everything. But, so I think
Now,
they actually have a point in some of the stuff they say about us.
Now I will, because I know you're an opponent of that, and I will do a little intellectual smoke pushback for this part of it. As a culture, we as African Americans are jealous of not having a flag. I know that in me and your private talks, sometimes you feel like not having a flag should not mean too much, because, to your point, look at all these opportunities. It's hard to identify opportunities when you have been under the oppression of Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton. I was a former dude out there, Sub-Zero. I know how easy it is to get caught into the culture of something, and you just wake up and now you're 30, riding a bicycle because you can't afford a car. You see what I'm saying? So I understand. My own mother has said to me, it's so fortunate that you didn't get caught up like the other boys in the streets. And the only reason I didn't is because two dudes gave me game. And I looked at the money in my pocket, and I realized what they were saying to me was, don't be happy here, which is what you say all the time, Sub-Zero. But it's hard to hear that a lot of times as an ADOS person when it's not my culture. If I come over here from a grass hut, now hear me for a minute, Sub-Zero. If I come over here from a grass hut, never been hit by, never had a German Shepherd bite my hands, never been hit over the head by police. And when I came to Atlanta, I was amazed at how police just went out attacking black folks, writing them tickets, trying to put them in jail. I mean, you guys get attacked more in the South than I do in California. So again, that's a different culture. You feel me? So my whole point before I give you the microphone back is, it's easy to get caught up in a cultural thinking. You can be caught up in Bankhead. You can be caught up in Washington Road, East Point. You can get caught up. I almost got caught up in the pimp game at one point in time until I got, man, I can't be doing this to women, man. Oh, man, I feel sick. You see what I'm saying? I mean, but looking at the money, you were like, no, stay in that. But you got to fight against who you are. So part of that is that problem. Let me answer V Boogie, and I'm gonna give you the microphone. V Boogie says, and everybody can donate or hit the cash pal because this is a intellectual conversation, man. Ain't no name calling. I'm sorry we lost MOT, but he made some good points before he left. V Boogie says, Mr. Research, not everyone is international, but to Sub-Zero's point, we should be because we have the internet and we don't have to go to a library. I'm magnifying Sub-Zero's point for him. Yes, we're not all international, but we should be. V Boogie says, but those of us who are can network with those who are not. You're absolutely right. That is true. But the problem that me, MOT, and Sub-Zero have when we're networked, we got to do in business what's called customer allocation re-education. We got to educate the non-international guy on why some of the stuff we say is valid. Let me go to Sub-Zero and then we'll get King Sigma afterwards. Sub-Zero, please go ahead, sir.
Hey, yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think the culture is just the glaring obvious thing that is there. The culture, if you read the writings of certain people like Thomas Sowell, or even people that were contemporaries back in the day, Booker T. Washington, E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey. You read all those people's writings from 75 to 100 years ago. They'll tell you black people were like this, black people were like that. This is what they were doing. So we weren't as bad as we are now. Over the last 50, I would say 60 years, we've really had a real shift as to our culture, our heritage, how we view family, the industriousness, the enterprising mentality that black people once had has been stripped.
Let me point it. We haven't had a lot of this until Bush Jr. came into office. Before Bush Jr., we didn't even have a lot of this, which is your point. But I just want to put the date in there. Go ahead.
I think 50% of our children were out of wedlock by the 1980s. That was in the 80s.
Because that part because of Reagan. Reagan is the one who started private jails, and because we used to get tickets to appear in court. When Reagan started locking people up and holding them for 2-3 weeks and 4 months, that's what started all that. And then Clinton magnified it.
But let me ask you this though. So I understand that, right? And I always hear the prison industrial complex is a big issue. But let me say this, man, because I kind of dug into that a little bit. The whole penal system in America only has 2 million people. That's white, black, Hispanic, everybody. Out of that, let's say 50% are black. 90% of those are black men. So you're talking about 900,000 to, let's say 1 million black men. There's about 22 million black men in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 5%. Over our lifetimes, when they say you'll be incarcerated, they're including people who, like myself, got locked up for traffic tickets or small violations.
Right.
That, like a weed or some misdemeanor. Not real hardened criminal 3, 5, 10-year stints. That's not
agree.
one
I agree. What's the point?
The point I'm trying to make is I think we give prison too much of the reason as to why our family structure broke down.
Okay, stop right there. Out of love, stop right there. So you said family structure. So you're using the prison information and you're addressing it for family. Let me make the connection and I'll give you the microphone back. Hold on for a minute, King Sigma, because this is important. When you get arrested for a ticket, traffic, okay, and you get your second arrest, and neither time were you in violation. These people just had the right to arrest you and hold you. They could have wrote you a ticket. Let's go to the lowest common denominator. What happens on the lowest level? Because you introduced the lowest level. So when you get this ticket wrote and you're not able to bond out, or you're not able to get a OR, okay, you're there. You might have just lost your job. That happened to me 3 times in Atlanta for no reason. You might have you might have lost your apartment and had all your stuff kicked out. That
What
happened
city
to
was
me.
it? What city did you like that?
Decatur.
I live in
Decatur.
Decatur.
Yeah, I lived in Decatur, right on North Road, North Decatur Road, right up the street from the QT and the jail. They arrested me twice for the same ticket. Held me in the system. Wait a minute, because again, this is a learning lesson for you out of love on how another person family can be affected. Imagine if I had children, how this would have affected. On my second time for the same ticket, they didn't take the ticket out of the system. This was happening at the same time that the Decatur deputy was murdering the incoming deputy. That lets you know that I really know what I'm talking about. I got lost in the system, Sub-Zero, up in that jail for 4 months. By the time I got out, all my stuff was evicted, had got scattered out. My car was towed, couldn't afford to get it out, lost the job, had to start all over from scratch.
Now
That's
hold
how
on, hold on, hold on.
that's
I've
how
been through that.
easy it is. Oh, wait. That's how easy it is for a little son or daughter who depends on me to be affected and maybe have to go out there and protect his mama by selling some dope. That's how it happens. But go ahead, sir.
Okay, so that right there is a problem, but that primarily is an economic problem. Tickets, I got tickets.
You
Now you can
can't
say it's
label
rape.
that an economic. No. I'm gonna stop you. You can't label it an economic problem. You can label it as a problem, but it's up to us to do more studies to give percentage on whether it's economic or whether it's family. But please continue.
Well, I mean, if you get a ticket and you can pay the ticket, because I got one ticket was messed up. I was flipping houses. Housing bubble happens in '07, '08. I'm broke. I get stopped. I think I had one at the time. I had a little money because I was running a comedy club at the time, but I didn't have enough to pay this ticket. Didn't show up to court. License suspended. But I get stopped three more times. They write the tickets, but they let me go. Finally, when I finally tried to go pay it, I went on there, it was $8,500 because a judge got mad because I didn't come to court and gave me $1,000 for every driving while suspended and $500 for the no insurance. That's 6,000. Then the other tickets with fees and court costs added up to about $8,500. Right?
True.
That happened. Then I got stopped in Stockbridge because that's what I was going to ask you who stopped you because Stockbridge screwed me royally. Stockbridge stopped me and gave me a $5,000 worth of tickets in one stop, right? And so by the time I paid the damn lawyer and got my shit cleared up, I was out $14,000, right?
Now,
Now if
now,
I ain't
now,
had
now,
if I
now
didn't do
I see.
IT, if I wasn't doing
Okay.
what I was doing in IT
Right.
right now, and able to pay $14,000 in tickets,
Right.
I would have been screwed. That would have been, and it took me. I'd have been messed up. So
Right.
tickets is a problem. But I'm not saying it. What I'm saying is, I think there is a culture. I was trying to agree with your earlier point about culture, in that culturally, there's something sick about the African American culture that other cultures don't have when they come here.
Okay.
I
That
agree
that
with
is
you.
true. That is true. But that's because we're a broken culture.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let you get this last 30 seconds because we gotta give King Sigmund some of the mic. But let me
I
just
gotta head. I'm gonna head out in a second anyway. But go ahead.
okay,
I'm gonna be here for a bit.
let me just interject this last thing. What you just said is a culture within itself. Police officers going after people that they don't believe can pay the ticket in order to generate revenue. When I lived in Georgia, every place that had a sheriff or a county state police didn't have all that citizen harassment. It was the city cops, the Pine Lake type of people, the DeKalb County type of people. Okay, they're going out trying to get revenue. So my whole point in how it affects the family, yes, you're right. If you didn't have that money, you'd have been stuck in the system. But my point is it right to go after people who don't have bread, because if it was a little white girl with blue eyes who reminded you of your niece as a white cop, you wouldn't do it. If it was a white woman driving on her third DUI, you wouldn't do it. And little known fact, Sub-Zero, I want you to look into this. In your state, the female section of the jail is only 1/3 of the entire jail. You know what that means? That means every time a female in America breaks a law, the cop that's about to arrest her has to consider whether they got space in the jail for her. And if they don't, no matter whether she did the exact same thing Sub-Zero did, she will get a ticket. Go ahead, Sub-Zero, and go ahead, wrap up, and then we'll go to King Sigma. Ah, golly, I lost him. King Sigma, go ahead, sir.
Well, it looks like you guys were in exchange about the militarization of the police. I really came in more for the topic, so if you want to finish your statement on that, then I can jump back to that.
Go ahead, Sub-Zero, and then
my bad, brother. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna say, bro. All I'm saying is, when it comes to the African American culture and what we've been through in America, I always try to push for Black excellence on my channel with my students and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I think we should adopt the mentality that a lot of these Africans and Caribbeans have when they come to America, because they're winning. They're getting in Harvard, they're getting in Yale, they're getting in Dartmouth. We're not. When you go on these campuses, you can count on your hand probably how many African Americans in certain graduating class actually are in these classes. So I look at it and I see people who, in spite of the same kinky hair and big nose, succeed in the same culture, where you can't just say, okay, he's Black just like I am. His mom is African, she has an accent. This guy, unless you look at his last name, you don't even know his parents are African, right? So what happens is these people come over here, their parents on their ass, they bust their ass, and they wind up succeeding.
Whoa. Are they really busting their ass when they use civil rights things that Americans fought for to get those situations? Are they really busting? Whoa. Are they really busting their ass when they use Negro College Fund Monday and not African Fund Monday? Where is the African Negro College Fund? Where is the African laws that they created? So I understand your point, but they're coming in after the work is already done, saying, look at my Black face. But go ahead.
I'm saying that the door is open, regardless of the fact you are right. They are benefiting from what our ancestors died to do. I agree. But nonetheless, if the door is open, the door is open. Just because he goes through it, what's stopping you from going through it? So what he went through, I agree. I think it should be African Americans only. And then they can have their own stuff. I'm not saying they shouldn't be successful. They'll be successful anyway. A lot of them will. But a lot of them come over here and outwork people, bro. If you go to Stanford or Yale or any college that's hard to get in, and you see a Black person, a lot of times they are immigrant children. You don't just get into Stanford, computer engineering master's program, and you're a half-ass C student. You just don't. You know what I'm saying? You gotta at least have the credentials to even get in the door. African Americans, you got what? 85% of us graduate not even being able to read at a proficient level? 86. I mean, that hurts you when you start talking about going into these colleges, universities, and competing against these people for scholarships and opportunities. But if you really have the credentials, you damn right you're going to go through it. You will go through it. I don't think
I understand. I understand. I'm gonna give you the last word because we got to wrap up on your segment. Well, let me say this. Let me say this before you leave. This is why I hate our Black grandfathers, our Black American grandfathers, because they wanted to do everything for everybody, sons, daughters, and Africans. But I see in 2020 how our Black grandfathers should have been selfish. They should have only did it for American boys, because now that people can come in and benefit, now it's the wagging of the finger. And that's what's amazing to me when our USA grandfathers did it for everybody. Your final words, Sub-Zero.
Did you watch Grapevine? I can't watch it. It's hard for me to watch. Have you ever watched one of those shows?
Yeah, I watched
that's what
one.
I'm saying. The Africans, their attitude, their arrogance, the way they come at us, the way they talk about us, And then they say, well, you're just lazy. And to a certain extent, they're right. We are lazy in a certain extent. But for you to
To a
come,
certain extent, yeah, I'll give them
yeah,
that.
I mean, but for them to come and say, like, it just rubs me the wrong way
30
when I
seconds,
see that.
30 seconds. We got to get to King Sigma. He been
That's it.
patient.
That was it. I just wanted to say that part, man. Y'all have a good one, man. Y'all be blessed, man.
All right, check the replay.
All
King
right, bet.
Sigma, go ahead with your version, sir.
Well, go ahead with your question because you guys kind of went off the main topic. So I want to get back to the main topic. So you can go ahead and start it with the right
All right.
question.
So the main topic is about Africans and bridging the gap. So we got to have these uncomfortable conversations with our African brothers. For example, okay, when you're coming to a country, Russia, for example, you got to understand the history of Russia and how Russia gets down. Because what happens is if King Sigma is wearing a blazer, a t-shirt, and he has government connections at his job, he is valuable to a Russian person. And the African guy who got the same face, same skin tone as King Sigma, but he's a student, the Russian is not going to value him. He's going to find him amusing. Where did I get it wrong?
Now, are you speaking in terms of like Russians working in the interest of Russians or something different?
I'm talking about how when you go to different countries, it's about knowing the history of that country. Africans are always amazed on how they get treated versus how other dark-skinned people get treated. And when they come to America, it's the same thing. They're coming to benefit, and I'm using Russia so that I can take it off the America thing, but still make it linear. Still make it linear in this, intellectual shift.
Yeah, there's definitely.
So here's my point. Africans come to America now that it's safe, now that there's no German shepherds biting their hands, now that all the work has been done for everybody, and they come in wagging their finger about how they got treated in high school. Look, if I took my daughter, son, nephew to Ghana tomorrow and put them in school, they're going to get teased. And if they grow up 20, 30 years in Ghana and start walking around talking about, because when I came to Ghana, I got bullied. I got called a mera. It's always that argument. It's never the argument of, you know what, we recognize that we're coming here and we're trying to financially benefit and send money back to our country because we can't do that in our own country. Because we can't do that in our own country because the Arabs and the Chinese won't let us do that in our own country. King Sigma, where did I get it wrong?
Well, I think what happens is that you're talking about a situation of control and power, right? So, like, let's say you and I decide, hey, we're going to move to Nigeria, for example, right? For the most part, the Nigerians control the immigration policy there. And, Europeans obviously have influence or whatever, Chinese, whatever, they're starting to integrate their economy. But you're going to have a situation where there's some kind of black people that are from that country that have some kind of role in vetting who comes into the country, what kind of citizenship test you got to take, what kind of basic understanding that you have to have about the culture as it existed before you got there and how you're going to be integrated into that society. See, in America, the thing is, all the sacrifices that, the ancestors of the Native Black Americans have made has always been filtered through the dominant society because the dominant society has always controlled most of the institutions here in America, and at one point, all of the institutions. So we have to understand that these people come into a situation where we as a minority population don't control the institutions that educate, don't control the institutions that determine immigration policy,
right?
Don't control the economies in the neighborhoods that the majority of black people happen to live in. So when you got to look at it from an immigrant situation, they come here, they're going to go by what they see on the surface. And they're not going to care so much about the history because that's not forced upon them. When they go to school, are they forced to learn about the sacrifices that Native Black people? No, they come here. Everything is, it's like
hold on. Great point. I don't want that point to get overlaid. Africans don't come here knowing all of the history in school that African Americans created. The stoplight, plasma, telephones, the light bulbs that you use right now. It's different from the light bulb that Edison created.
Yeah.
All type of stuff that the car, the first car was made by a black man.
Yep.
And this is my point, and I'm finna let King Sigma go again. This is my point about Africans not knowing the full breadth of the country that they're critiquing and wagging the finger at. In order for us to bridge the gap, Africans, we have to come to your country knowing the full breadth of what you're dealing with. And this is why I always mention how Arabs control your continent. You don't like to admit that, but the same people who are telling you Islam, Islam, Islam are putting a noose around your neck and selling you for $200. We got to have an honest conversation about that. I said to an African the other day, name the African that created Islam. You can't, because it's an Arab created religion.
Yes.
So, but go ahead, King Sigma.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm glad that you brought that up. So when you talked about Lewis Latimer and Gary Morgan, right, for example, so part of a Black American history, a lot of what Black men specifically have done has been written out of history by the dominant society through the schools, through the universities, who went from Black men are not a part of the identity politics trend of the last 20 years. We're invisible. We're left out, right? So you talk about this African Pan-Africanism connection. There is a brother by the name of George Washington Williams. I will guarantee you that 99.9% of Black Americans have never heard of him. Very important politician and lawyer during the Congolese takeover by King Leopold of Belgium, right? So when King Leopold of Belgium was going over there with the scramble for Africa in the 1880s and all that, there were Black men specifically who were speaking up for the Africans, that were going to the international courts and saying that Leopold is killing millions of Congolese. And there were barely any Africans on the continent speaking a voice to the injustice that was happening all through Africa during the 1880s to about the 1920s. There was all of this massive influx of European powers stripping the country of all its resources, and they didn't care how many people they had to kill. But there was a Black man who was an attorney. He was a native Black American named George Washington Williams, and he had been born in Pennsylvania, and he had gotten a legal education from the President of the United States' father. I don't know if you remember President William Taft, but his father was an attorney.
And I talk about Taft a lot because Taft was just like Trump. But go ahead.
Yeah, Taft's father, though, was like very much about uplifting Black people, with quotes on it, of course. You know how in that time, whites, to look good, they'd say they'd help out a Black person here or there. Well, right. He had taken, George Williams under his wing and taught him the law, taught him politics. So instead of him just staying here in the United States and strictly working on issues related to Black Americans, which he did, he also started to speak up for the injustices of Africans. So what I'm saying is that Native Black Americans have always had a very Pan-Africanist leaning, but it's always been a one-way street for most of our history with each other. Black Americans, because of our experience as an oppressed majority in the United States, we can relate to many groups, which is often used against us. We're one of the least selfish ethnic lineage groups that ever existed on the planet.
Right. Let's stop right there. Start right there real quick. And what King Sigma is saying about least selfish, we do have selfish people in our situation, but our laws that we created so Africans could come here, you got to understand, they blocked you guys from coming here before 1990. They literally blocked you guys. Okay, let me say that again, because because I'm doing an anti-Kinganda O'Shea video just as a rebuttal. Okay, you got Africans, for those Africans who are listening, you guys don't understand. You were blocked from coming here. You and Black Cubans, Ethiopians weren't allowed here. We didn't see none of that growing up here because you guys were blocked. It was African Americans who put their money together and through the Black Caucus created little bills and laws and amendments to allow you guys access to come here. And until Dick Cheney, you guys were not allowed to come here. You guys got to stop playing with your understanding of how American history is. Go ahead, King Sigma. Sorry to cut you off.
To build on what you're saying about the amendments to the Immigration Act, they're doing it again right now. Joe Biden has made it clear his emphasis is going to bringing in immigrants,
white Euros,
India and Latinos and white Europeans, right? So already, right now in 2020, they're already setting the stage to prove your point that these Africans who have gotten like this red carpet laid out because of the issues related to the civil rights movement, well, they're about to pull that off and under. Even Trump, he told the Nigerians, none of you, hey, we cutting y'all off. We're not giving no more visas to you guys. And you saw
speak to that, because I don't think the Nigerians like that uncomfortable fact. Please speak to that.
Trump canceled the immigration rights of the Nigerians and cut them off, I believe, in 2019. Just cold turkey. He said, we're not issuing any more visas. And just like that, now they're asking black people, what about George Floyd? You know, I thought it was about all lives. See, again, like I said, because Native Black Americans' experience has been one of the worst in the last, 100 years or whatever, in terms of their race or whatever, they tend to want to help other people because they have that sense of justice, but it's always used against them. And I, for one, I tell black people, you got to be more selfish. You talk a lot about the flag, and I'm all for that. I'm all for the distinction of Native Black American, because it ain't no way around that. When you use Native Black American, ain't no way around that shit.
Because being loving and inviting has evidently backfired on our black grandfathers.
Yes. Just imagine if if King or Malcolm X was brought back and they looked around at the state of Native Black Americans at the close of 2020, they might literally both take rifles and shoot each other. Like, we gotta go. It's better off being dead than to see the state that the majority of blacks have fallen into, and then go into every neighborhood. They own nothing, even 70 years after the death of these great men. They control nothing.
Remember, you guys were shocked. Remember, you guys were shocked when we were on the panel several years ago, and I said I would have to kill some people before the battle even begins.
I mean, it's true.
This is why I said it.
I mean,
I learned that. I read 3 books on Shaka Zulu. Mm-hmm. He had to kill certain people because allowing them to exist weakened everybody in the region.
Well, that's what they have martial law for in the military. They have martial law that goes back thousands of years, that there's a reason why there's a hierarchy, there's rank, and there's rules of engagement, because you can't afford any kind of error or mutiny. So that's why martial law is there to court-martial people. And hey, you remember Abraham Lincoln, he didn't have no problem telling his generals that anyone that runs from the battlefield, kill them on the spot. You see what I'm saying? Because they have different rules during wartime and peacetime. There is a total different body of law and rules. So if Black Americans to have the vision that you're talking about, that would have to happen. But I have to be honest, just in the context of this conversation with the Africans, I just don't see it, because again, when we talk about the cultural problem that's facing the Black majority, you're talking about what is important in this modern age, the 4th industrial age, the post-2020 age: critical thinking, problem-solving skills, social skills, and prudence and cautiousness in finances. These are the kind of skills that have been the foundation of individuals and groups that tend to succeed in the Western oligarchical capitalist structure. The shit that Black people are doing now might fit in a communist country where you pretty much contract and waive all of your rights in order to have a overbearing welfare state, right? So like in a communist country, the state and the party are like the father, the head of the household. Everyone else is like children. That's how they kind of use an analogy for that. But in America, everyone is told to sink or swim, or you better find someone that's in your group that will help you save you from sinking and swimming. And so what happens, a lot of these Africans, like any other group here in America besides Native Black Americans, they're looking out for their own first, period. Right. And they don't have any problem doing that. at all.
And let me make this statement. We go into our final thing because my meeting has already started and I got to run to it. So I'm gonna make this statement. Then I'm gonna let King Sigma wrap up. When we say communism, please understand that we're really talking about Marxism. The whole 75% of Marxism / communism is about workers first. Okay. So the workers first concept, whether that be unions or whatever, the reason why they try to pollute it here in America so bad is because businesses and owners know that when you have a union first mentality, you got to be very good as an owner and a manager. You got to manage well and own well. And when you don't, and when you have a right to work concept, then you can be a lackadaisical owner and a lackadaisical manager. This is why we have so many manager problems. And this is why since the fall of unions, and me and King Sigma are going to have to talk about that one day live for you guys. But since the fall of unions, nobody else has said this. So I'm going to give you a Mr. Research exclusive. This is why we've had so many companies needing bailouts. Notice the correlation. Since the fall of unions, so many managers and owners are shit shows at what they do. And they get caught up and they need bailouts. When we had unions, what that had was a third, a fourth manager within the union who kept the quality the way it was supposed to be. So the manager never had these problems. The owner never had these problems. But since the fall of the union, you're relying on middle management. That's why it's called middle management now. And these fake unions that are created by companies within. And now there's no structure to stop it from getting bad. Let me make this point to Mr. Boogie. Mr. Boogie says, V Boogie says, aren't Indians and Iranians classified as white? So there's no such thing as race outside of America. When you go outside of America, people will talk about culture. They will only talk with you about race because they know you're an American, and race is an American thing. When you look up the word Rossi, R-A-S-S-E, that's an Italian ghetto slang word that plantation owners adopted. So let's get to the white thing. Everybody is classified as white who white Americans feel a skin kinship with. Russians are considered white. Ukrainians are considered white. Now watch this, V-Dub. This is a Mr. Research exclusive. King Sigma's going to like this too. White people are considered, Russians are considered white. Iranians are considered white inside of America. Ukrainians are considered white inside of America. But outside of America, Russians don't consider Ukrainians white. They consider Ukrainians Mexicans. That's a tongue twister, I know. That's because I lived in Romania. Romanian people are darker than Ukrainians, but Russians value them more. Let's go to your point about Turkey. They used to be called the Turks. In your Bible, they're called Troy. In Islam, they're called Troy. Troy is Turkey, same identical place, okay? Russians don't see Turkey as white. Russians see Turkeys as Indians. That's why they call the Turks. They just don't like the Turks. So your whole classification as white, because I know it's a tongue twister answering your question, but this is why we need to have intellectual conversations, and people like MOT, shout out to him, Sub-Zero and King Sig are pushing me to have these conversations because they are complex. But how now you see that all those people are not truly white because outside of America, they're not considered white. And, so that's how that is. And Indians are only considered white because the Aryans came over there to take them over. And then Gandhi hated African people. So these things are very complex, B-Dub, but thank you for your question. Anybody want to donate, you donate to the King of Classy PayPal, or because this is good information that you can use in any intellectual argument or discussion. King Sigma, you have the last thought. What are you thinking, sir?
Yeah, I would just say that, in regards to talking about how the other groups define each other within the framework of their own countries, really points to power. And within the American context, it's really, race is a construct, right? Because again, black didn't mean the same thing in the 1500s necessarily that means in the 1700s, because so much of what the white dominant society constructed through the racial lens was based on the changing economic reality. So once they started to clear up more and more of America, and they started to generate more and more demand for the products made from America, it became more necessary for the dominant planters or whatever to control their laborers. And they found that one of the greatest ways of controlling labor in a heterogeneous or society is using race, right? Using class. And that's kind of where America gets the race thing from, is that they use race for control of labor more than anything else. Because why? It's been proven to work better than anything else. You look at things like Shays' Rebellion in the early 1500s, there wasn't no clear definition of race up until the late 1600s. When tobacco blew up, cotton, indigo, that's when it became clear on how we're going to distinguish these groups. Those that are black, descended from Africa, are going to be the slave class, in 99% of locations, and anyone else is non-slave. If you're not an Indian, which is sovereign, then you're classified as white. Because again, even back then, they had Arabs within America, all these groups, but they were given.
You got 10 seconds because they texted me to come to this meeting.
So that whole racial thing for America is a social construct to control labor, and it's always been that way. And even now, I don't know about so much with the labor part, but going forward, it'll be more to control people's aspirations. So that's where the biracials, the Indians, and the Latinos are going to come in. But with that, have a good meeting, bro. We'll
Thank you, sir. Time, man. I got to run, you guys, but we're going to chop it up some more. We're going to do some more of this stuff. I'm going to keep it intellectual as best as possible and get away from the messy side of life, because I want to intellectually compete against you guys and African people who are willing to come up. Let's have intellectual conversations and give you some of this intellectual smoke. Much love. Peace.